Welcome to Quick MCAT Lessons, where I try to explain MCAT topics in 10 minutes or less. Today, we're covering gas exchange. This is how oxygen enters the blood, how carbon dioxide exits, and how all this happens at the level of the lungs and tissues. So, gas exchange takes place in the alveoli. These are tiny air sacs in the lungs, and they're surrounded by capillaries. First, we will talk about gases. Gases do not need to pass through clefts as they move by simple diffusion. This is based on partial pressure gradients. So oxygen diffuses from alveoli to capillaries, and carbon dioxide diffuses from capillaries into alveoli to be exhaled. Obviously, this is reversed in the tissues. The respiratory membrane is very thin. It includes the alveolar epithelium, the basement membrane, and the capillary endothelium, but it's only about 0.5 microns. And gas exchange depends on a few things. So it depends on the surface area of the alveoli, which the larger it is, the more gas exchange. It depends on thin diffusion distance, which we have a very thin membrane, and it depends on a strong partial pressure gradient, which is usually true because you have a lot of oxygen and a lot of carbon dioxide, and they both want to travel down their gradients. And what this does is this follows Fick's law of diffusion. Now, Fick's law of diffusion says that the rate of diffusion is equal to a surface area multiplied by diffusion gradient divided by membrane thickness. So a bigger surface area or a bigger diffusion gradient leads to a higher rate, and a smaller membrane thickness leads to a higher rate. Now, gas exchange in tissues. When oxygenated blood reaches tissues, then your pressure of oxygen is higher in the blood than in the tissues, so your oxygen will diffuse into your cells, and your pressure of carbon dioxide is higher in the tissues than in the blood, so carbon dioxide will diffuse into your capillaries. This is obviously in reverse to what happens in the lungs. So just some basics about oxygen transport. Oxygen is carried by hemoglobin. In blood, hemoglobin is comprised of 4 cooperative subunits, each of which has a heme group to which an oxygen binds. The oxygen binds to the heme group's iron atom. Now, I said cooperative subunits. This means that when one oxygen molecule is bound to a heme group, all the other heme groups increase their affinity to bind oxygen. And in the reverse, if all are bound and one is removed, then this will lead to a conformational shift leading to a decreased affinity for all of them, causing release. This is a form of allosteric regulation, and it's referred to as cooperative binding, and this results in a sigmoidal or S-shaped oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. Now, how do you measure blood oxygen? Well, this is often measured as a partial pressure, which is normally 70 to 100 millimeters of mercury, but this is inconvenient, and it's inconvenient because it takes a blood sample. A much easier way to measure blood oxygen is oxygen saturation. This tells us the percentage of hemoglobin molecules that carry oxygen, and it's easily measured using a finger probe. Most healthy people have an oxygen saturation of above 97%. Quick recap: gas exchange occurs by diffusion across thin alveolar membranes. It's driven by partial pressure gradients of carbon dioxide and oxygen. In the lungs, oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide goes out. In tissues, oxygen goes out and carbon dioxide goes in. Factors like surface area and membrane thickness are critical for efficient exchange. And that's it for today's episode. In the next episode, we'll talk about the Bohr and Haldane effects and the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve in more detail.